number 1 this evening, and item number 2, which is item number 1 being the joint meeting with Swansea Park Commission. We're awaiting the arrival of a couple of members that are tied up over at the high school. Item number 2 we're going to forego for right now, which is a statement of interest to NSBA. We require Mr. Montero to be here for that, and he's also tied up at the high school right now. We do expect them, by the way, moments within the next few minutes. That's where I just came from, and the reason why I was a little bothered. Item number 3, I understand that we have some representation from the Swansea Housing Authority. So let's move on to item number 3, and we'll get you out of here sooner rather than later. Would you mind joining us at the table? This is item number 3 is Swansea Housing Authority permits. Now, the board has been made aware of a request submitted by the Swansea Housing Authority for the purpose of seeing if we could negotiate a rate, something less than full rate, relative to a plumbing permit. And could you, first of all, tell us where you are in that process? Have you accepted bids, or where are you in that whole process right now?
First, I'm Francine Kouis. I'm the Executive Director of the Swansea Housing Authority, and this is Joan Leonardo. She is the Chair of our Board of Commissioners. Where we are in the bidding process is we have opened and closed it twice because of different information that we've received about the actual cost of the permits. The last time that we reopened the bidding process, we thought we had a dollar amount that it was going to be charged due to numerous conversations taking place back between the Housing Authority, the people that issue the permits, as well as certain people at Town Hall. A lot of confusion. One of the statements that I've received a number of times from people who want to bid on this project is every time they would go to find out what the actual cost was, they were getting conflicting information. We were told it was $60 for the first 5 toilets, and after that I was quoted $7 or $8 for each additional. We were told it was the way your bylaw read on this was that it was per address. We've also been told it's per building, and we've been told it's per unit. And I've had a number of conversations with that office just trying to clarify. So that's why we decided to come, and number 1, we're asking that if it is in fact $60 per toilet for up to 5, we'd like to point out, number 1, we're not commercial, we are residential. We'd like to point out that our entire address is 100 Gardens Neck Road, so if it reads per address, then it's 100 Gardens Neck Road is everyone's address there. What we're looking for, which we feel is fair to both the town and to the Housing Authority, is that we would go per building. We have 8 buildings with 8 units in each building. So if we paid the $60 for the first 5 and then the additional 8 or whatever that dollar amount is per building, it would be feasible. We applied for a grant through the state for funds to be able to remove all our old toilets, most of them being 40 years or older, and install low-flow toilets, low-flow shower heads, and new shut-off valves. And we were awarded the grant for the cost of the labor. So that's what the plumbers are bidding on, the cost of labor. If we have to pay $60 per toilet, we're looking at $3,840, which doesn't really make this project financially feasible anymore.
Okay. Mr. Kern, just a point of clarification. Francine brought up a couple of points regarding the rules associated with charging for permits. Is there any basis for any of them in terms of a per address, a per location fee, or I'm under the impression that our building inspector came back to us and said that under his rules and regulations that he's familiar with, the going rate would be the 60 times the number of units.
That's right. But as we discussed in a previous meeting, we had some conversations, Dave Betts and I, about trying to find an appropriate way to reduce the cost to the Swansea Housing Authority. And the first time around, one of the alternatives we explored, as I explained earlier, was to invoke what you would do in a single-family residence where you would pay for the first 5 fixtures under a permit, and then the additional fixtures would be $8 each, as Francine discussed. And we tried to find a logical way that we could apply that approach to that facility, and I indicated to Swansea Housing that I thought it was going to work, and then I had an additional conversation with Mr. Betts and decided that was a bad approach for 2 reasons. One, it was probably too much of a distortion of their rules, and if we were going to make an exception, it really needed to be done at the selectmen's level. And that's where I kind of regrouped. I let the housing authority know that although our intentions may have been good, probably not the way we want to proceed, and I came into the board and presented what I thought were 4 choices. And for those who are not familiar with the previous conversation, waive the fees entirely, put together the approach that we just described, which I think is a little bit much to try to describe that facility as it would qualify for that application of the permit fee. The idea there was that we would somehow arrange for all of the inspections to be done at the same time, and I'll get back to that in a minute. I'll jump to the 4th choice, which is the one Francine described, which is basically pay the full permit fee for each unit. That's $60 each, which is $3,840, as she said. And this kind of approach came up after the first go-around, and that was to cover the cost of the inspections. That would be $40 times 64 units, which I have as $25.60. I think anytime we discuss the fact that it's a nonprofit, we discuss the fact that it is a quasi-state agency or a state agency, that you have to ask yourself what exceptions you'd be willing to give to other state agencies or state buildings or buildings built with state money, or however you want to look at it. The other thing, there are other people who will build multi-unit structures that could provide for an inspection to be done on all of the structures or all of the units in the structure, because they own the building and there aren't any people living in them yet. So for us to say, well, this is exceptional because we can do all those inspections at once, it's really not exceptional. So we can, in my view anyway, we can, the exceptions, although they are attractive in some ways, I think raise questions about the next either quasi-state agency or state facility. Some buildings will be similar, some not, and so I thought it best to have the conversation with the board.